What's up, everybody? Welcome to the 3 and Out YouTube page. I'm John Middlekauff, and we are talking football all day, every day. Make sure you subscribe, like the video, share it with your friends. Let's roll, baby. Okay, mailbag time. At John Middlekauff, Instagram. You guys fire in the DMs. You know the drill. Wide open, baby. Let's answer your questions. Start with Loon. MVP mailbag question. Should we just call the MVP award the quarterback award at this point? Yes, I get it. Quarterback is the most important position, but they have to throw the ball. Running back, tight end, wide receiver. An average game manager quarterback will look like a god if he has an amazing wide receiver. Should we just stop wasting our time having non-quarterback candidates when we know the quarterback will always win the award? I don't think it's going to change. Like, I don't think they'll ever change the name of the award. But if you do like to gamble and dabble in a little future MVP bet, I think you'd have to be pretty nuts to bet on anyone. But I would say 5 players this year, right? Obviously, Mahomes, Lamar. Lamar would be pretty difficult given that he just won and he's already won 2. Allen, Burrow, I think I haven't even looked at the odds yet. You know, if Jalen Hurts bounces back, Purdy, Goff could put up huge stats. So, yeah, it just feels like we know the group 6-7 guys. CJ Stroud has a big year. It's like, what would like Myles Garrett, Nick Bosa, or TJ Watt have to do, honestly, to win the MVP? 27 sacks? What would a wide receiver have to do? 150 catches? 2,300 yards? 30 touchdowns? I mean, what's even... It's not. I hear you, bro. It just kind of is what it is now. We could argue about it all we want, but yeah, it's definitely not going to change. And this is kind of the world we live in. I listen to you all the time. Question for the mailbag: where would you rank Calvin Johnson, Megatron on an all-time wide receiver list? The reason for my question is because I see all the time on social media people talking about all-time wide receivers. More specifically, from the 2010s. More often than not, I see people talk about Julio Jones, AB, Larry, and even Dez Bryant, but hardly ever Megatron. He's not even mentioned. So where would you rank him among all-time receivers? As a Lions fan who grew up watching that era, he's my Barry Sanders, and I feel like he doesn't get enough credit. That's a great question. It's hard because I don't have like a list of every wide receiver. I mean, the same guys kind of come to your mind, right? Jerry Rice, Randy Moss, 1-2. I think a lot of people go Randy Moss is the most talented wide receiver. Obviously, Jerry's records speak for themselves. Those guys are just in a category kind of their own. I think the easier way for me to do it, because I can't speak on the 70s or 80s really. And in the 90s, like the best wide receivers, Chris Carter was incredible. Michael Irvin was dominant. But in my football watching time, like late high school through now, so like late 90s to now, you know, Terrell Owens, I think the problem with him is he was, you know, thing that Megatron or Larry Fitz had is they operated like they were Peyton Manning or Tom Brady, like the character, the leadership, just how much everyone loved him. T.O. was a pretty big pain. Now, he was a dominant player. So if we just go the last 25 years, you know, Antonio Brown's 6-year stretch, a little like Terrell Owens, he leaves such a negative taste in your mouth because of how weird it got at the end. But he was as good as it got. So I'm not doing ranking here. I'm just using other names. To me, Megatron obviously is an all-time great player. Larry Fitzgerald's unique, right? Because he clearly, like Megatron, was a dominant player. But had times when his quarterback position was like, what is going on here? And that happened to Larry more than Megatron because at least he got Stafford. But when Larry was in the playoffs, the dude turned into like a jacked Jerry Rice. I mean, he was an unstoppable force. So I would have Larry right there with Megatron, Antonio Brown. I think Tyreek Hill is one of the best players I've ever seen. Any position in the NFL. That's why the argument with everyone going Tyreek Hill being number one, did you notice no one was really saying that? It's like, who has Lamar Jackson above Patrick Mahomes when we just saw the two guys play? One guy put on a masterclass. Yeah, what's going on? But Tyreek Hill, I mean, there were stretches. There were stretches in 2023. It's like, who are the two best players in the league? You're like Tyreek and Myles Garrett. I mean, there were stretches in that season where like these are the two best players in the league. I mean, you can watch a month. You're like, is Trent Williams the best player in the league? So I'd put Megatron on a very short list of, and I'm sure I'm forgetting guys. I'm trying to think. Manning, who'd he play? You know, I wouldn't put Reggie Wayne on that category. Marvin Harrison played in the 90s too. I think he was drafted in 96. Guys, yeah, I think those are some names that jump out. I'm sure I'm leaving some out, but it just gets very, very cluttered quick. You know, Davante has an incredible 5-6 year stretch. And the only reason to slow down is because it's quarterback play. But that's the thing with a wide receiver. It's not in your control. Same with a running back a little bit. The all-time greats like Barry Sanders, Walter Payton, like they're flourishing no matter who they're playing with. But most guys, like you put them behind crappy offensive lines, it ain't going to be great. You are dependent. Even a quarterback, you are dependent on your play caller, unless your name's like Peyton Manning. Mailbag. I'm from Cape Town, South Africa. I'd love to go. I was thinking a few days ago, you know who has the best job in the world? Trey Lance. If he's utter trash, he gets to retire. He made almost $35 million. Just think of the life you could set for yourself with that level of cash. An absolute best case scenario. He could be a career backup making $2 million a year for another 10 years. Also, if he retires, you said he's a high character guy. He works and has connections in the industry where he can one day work himself up to a salary of a couple $100,000. These are the type of options and privileges I think players disregard when they complain about the unfair criticisms and the pressures of what they do. Yeah, I mean, I think you said it pretty well. It's hard. I've seen some clips where he's looked terrible, and then I've seen clips where he looks good. Preseason games are going to be pretty big for him. Pretty clear he's still the number 3 quarterback. He can't beat out Cooper Rush, who's actually a pretty good backup quarterback. But is Trey Lance a backup quarterback in the NFL? But like you said, he made it the moment the Niners pulled the trigger and drafted a number 3 overall. Now, if the Niners hadn't drafted him, he was going in the top 10. Someone would have drafted him, and someone would have been pretty disappointed in the draft pick. But that's the way the draft works. If you get drafted in the top 10, and there are players every single year that never become very good in the top 10, you make a lot of money. Question for the mailbag. I'm in a family football pool with my mom, dad, and brother. It's super simple. We all take turns snake drafting 8 football teams each for the regular season. Whoever has the most cumulative wins for the season wins. Easy as that. This year, I'm drafting first overall, meaning I get picks 1, 8, 9, 16, 17, 24, 25, 32. I am eyeing Detroit, 49ers, or Chiefs with my first pick. But after that, what team should I target with each pick? Once again, for overall regular season wins. Yeah, I think if you're looking for, I think Detroit feels like a team that's going to win 12 plus. The Niners got a lot going on. Wouldn't totally be scared. I think the Chiefs would scare you a little bit just because at this point in time, what do they have to prove in October and November? I think they'll try early, try late, and they could go to cruise control a little in the middle. They're the team you bet on in the playoffs. I would say the Rams would be a team that could be pretty interesting. The Rams, the Packers. If you like the Eagles to win the division, that could be 11, 12 wins. I would say mid-tier teams that people might be off the scent of would be, the Bears are a team. I think the Saints are a team. People act like the Saints blow. They went 9-8 last year, and their offense was a joke. Well, I was doing a little research, texting with some people on the staff. Said the offense with Kubiak is Derek's a lot more comfortable. Not acting like they're going to win the Super Bowl. But I don't think it's crazy the Saints win 10 games. Because everyone and their mother is picking the Atlanta Falcons. I'm just supposed to bet that Kirk Cousins and Raheem Morris are just a lock. I'm not acting like Derek Carr and Dennis Allen are great either. But what the hell's the difference? What is the difference? Cousins has been a better player than Derek, but he's coming off an Achilles. Raheem Morris hasn't been a head coach in 15. We just don't know. So I think the Saints are a team. Uh, I would say, I don't know if the Bengals are like off the scent. I would be a little less bullish on like, could the Ravens win 10 games this year instead of like 13? I don't think the Ravens are the number one seed. I mean, they lost a lot. They're depending on a lot of new young players. Um, is there a chance the Bengals win that division? Now, the one thing, the Ravens draft really well, so even when you haven't heard of the guy and then he becomes a 5-year starter. Question for the mailbag. I went to OU in 2017 to 2022. Had my fair share of fun. During my time, I saw some of the most dominant individual college talents in Baker, Kyler, and Jalen Hurts, CeeDee Lamb. And Caleb Williams was levels above all of them. He's got that situation magic like Mahomes combined with all the talent in the world. I would be shocked, considering his talent, combined with his weapons, if they aren't competing to win the division, even with the Lions and the Packers, who are elite teams in their own right. My question is, if I told you the Bears made the NFC Championship game in that division, how would we be talking about Caleb Williams and his rise to stardom? I think he could win the MVP. But when you watch Hard Knocks, and this is why I always pump the brakes, and Saban brought this up. Now, Caleb has an element that Peyton didn't have because he can scramble. Peyton couldn't move. Actually, Peyton was a better athlete in like 98 than he obviously became when he was older. It's really, really difficult for young players. The play calls are really intense, a lot of moving parts. Defenses are way more complex in the NFL. You are going to have ups and downs. And you are going to go through periods where your confidence just, I would say, sways. You might not lose it, but it's tough. No matter what you do, the moment you get a new job that is hard, it can be intense early on. And then you might look back a year or two later and you're like, God, this is way easier now. Of course it is. Most humans learn by doing. You get better with experience. I think expecting the world of this team as a rookie, it's why I think the hype on Jaden Daniels, like the NFL is so hard. All the shitty teams are good. It's like, okay, they're playing the second worst team in his division, which in the equivalent of that in college is like when LSU plays like Mississippi State. Well, he's playing the Giants, and they got Brian Burns, Dexter Lawrence, Thibodeau. Like, they got some dudes who can move like you can move and hit you and hurt you. So I just think that it's Saban was right. It's unfair, the expectations that these guys have to deal with. It really is. He could have a fantastic rookie season and they win 8 games. Now you would say, how does that happen? Because they were 7 wins last year and Justin Fields was their quarterback. So maybe that's not plausible. Maybe if he is really good, they win 10, assuming their defense is really good. Which, I mean, it could be. They got a lot of talent on defense for sure. Not a question, but more of a statement. I don't think he should be paid Justin Jefferson money. The wide receiver bubble is going to burst eventually, and don't want to lock up your salary cap right before you have to sign Purdy. They have control of him for the next 3 years without a long-term deal, so I think they should make Aiyuk play under the option and franchise tag him next year. He won't retire. I think one thing that Jake Rosenberg, when we had him on, who's been dealing with these contracts for years, he hit on a pretty good point. He said player empowerment has never been stronger. And it's not the NBA where you just get your way. Kevin Durant, I only want to play for the Suns, and he ends up on the Suns. That's not quite how it works. But forever, teams would just be like, you're playing on the 5th-year option, you're playing on the franchise tag. I don't think coaches and GMs want to deal with that anymore in terms of a pouty player. And if the reason you are making him do that is because you're questioning paying him, well, if he pouts and then plays bad, his value goes down, but his price tag for you doesn't go down because you still have to franchise him and that number's high. So I think a lot of teams are like, yeah, we're not dealing with this, so we essentially trade you. Now, where the player empowerment comes in on this, And I saw Schefter it was on my social media, it was on Twitter, but he said it on TV. He said essentially Aiyuk has a no trade clause because for you to execute a trade, like they had a deal in place with the Patriots, and Aiyuk said no because I'm not signing the contract. So the Patriots aren't going to do whatever that deal was. Let's use a hypothetical. Kendrick Bourne coming off an ACL, Matthew Judon, who wants a new contract, and a second round pick. Niners are like, yeah, we'll do that deal. And then we'll give Aiyuk $30 million a year. And Ayuk's like, yeah, I'm not signing it. The Browns, the Niners have a deal in place with the Browns. Amari Cooper and a third round pick. Let's just, again, I don't know what the deal is. I'm just using hypotheticals. If Aiyuk signed their contract, which they have negotiated with them, he's a Brown. He clearly is hesitant to do that. So, like, he controls some of this. The problem is he's just kind of sitting there in no man's land. It's like, I only want to go to the Steelers. And that's where it's like, well, the Niners aren't comfortable with the package they're getting back from the Steelers, so nothing's happening. That's where I think a lot of this kind of animosity, weirdness, because he controls some of it. They don't want to just, I think they'd be more likely. It's like, okay, if you're going to stay, you're making $14 million this year. We'll give you a raise. We'll make that 23 because they got like $30+ million in cap space, and we'll just play out this season, or 25 million or whatever. I don't see how they give him 25 million when Debo's making 20. That's where it gets kind of weird. The whole situation's just pretty bizarre. Not playing best ball at DraftKings? You're missing out. Here's what you need to know. DraftKings Best Ball Millionaire Contest is their biggest fantasy contest ever. We're talking 15 million guaranteed prize pool with two millionaires being crowned for the first and second place. If you're set it and forget it type, then Best Ball is for you. No waiver wires, no roster management, bigger roster so injuries won't end your season. Only the draft and that's it. You're set for the year. 15 million prize pool. Still not convinced? Check this out. This year, DraftKings is offering everyone a draft one, get one special. Your $20 entry fee scores you a bonus ticket. Get in on all the best ball action. Download the DraftKings app and use the code JOHN. That's code JOHN for all customers who enter the NFL Best Ball 15 Millionaire contest to get a bonus ticket and get a shot at being crowned one of the 2 millionaires only on DraftKings. I'm glad you haven't answered my question yet. Instead, may I rephrase? I guess I missed this one. I missed some of your guys' questions. There's a ton of DMs we get. It's hard to just keep track of them all. So I'm trying. I don't pass anyone on purpose. With the salary cap making things interesting for every team from year to year, the teams have the choice to spend on the cap when how they see fit. Doesn't that just render the draft kind of useless? Caleb Williams would not go to a team that is strong at quarterback with a monstrous contract. So the team that would have been drafting him anyway is courting him during a theoretical free agent signing period, along with the veterans of the league. And now Caleb Williams would have chosen Cliff in Washington rather than being forced to Chicago. We have the same kind of choice to pick where we want to work as long as the feeling is mutual, don't we? Why take that away from the players? Do you agree that the draft has become obsolete with the salary cap? No, I don't, because the draft, this whole thing is a reality television show. That's how all these guys make their millions of dollars, with us watching. Well, the season's only 6 months long. So how do you keep everyone engaged? Well, you have the combine, you have free agency, and then the draft, which is one of the biggest television shows in America. And that's led by the NFL. So to me, it serves not only a purpose from a marketing tool, it also, like Caleb Williams, just as he said on Hard Knocks, got $25.5 million. And in this specific situation, okay, he could have gone to Washington because his buddy's Cliff's there. You use the example of like we have the opportunity to choose. Let's just use coming out of college. What's the most money you've ever heard of a guy making out of college? In engineering, in sales, and whatever? Maybe the number's way higher now than when I was. I mean, I didn't I don't think I knew anyone that made 100 grand. Now, that was 2008, but I think it's a little different. Like, I'm sorry, the rules are different when you get $25.5 million signing bonus. Sorry, you don't get to choose where you play. And I'm sorry, Chicago ain't the worst place to play, and he looks pretty happy there, and it's a pretty incredible situation. So yeah, I'm not one of those anti-draft people. I fucking love the draft. I see its value from the league standpoint. I see its value from a fan standpoint. It creates hope for the bad teams. So yeah, I mean, I don't know what to tell you. I don't look at it that way at all because I don't feel bad. I just don't. Uh, I'm not 100% certain you will see this, but a team that's not brought up that could fill the things the Niners want could be the Raiders. Adams for Aiyuk. They have picks and players. Adams would gladly work on a long-term deal with the Niners. Davante Adams is a Raider fan, born and raised. The reason when the Packers and him were not going to get a deal done, he said, I want to go to the Raiders, and the Raiders wanted him, and it worked out. I don't think Davante, now maybe the first 3 weeks of practice, he's like, we're not going to win with these two quarterbacks. So maybe he would change his tune. If the Raiders offered Davante Adams for Brandon Aiyuk straight up, the Niners would do that trade. They would Kyle Shanahan would drive Brandon Aiyuk to Vegas. Davante Adams is in a different level than Brandon Aiyuk. Davante Adams is one of the best players the last 20 plus years. He is a great wide receiver. So if that was available, which it is not, what's the difference? Why would the Raiders get rid of Davante for Aiyuk? So I got a younger player who's not as good, who's going to actually cost more per year. I already got a wide receiver. But wide receiver is not my problem. Quarterback is. Niners would do that deal in a New York minute. I mean, they're cool with getting Amari Cooper. Davante Adams? If the 49ers had Davante Adams with Debo and Kittle and McCaffrey's bad calf, they'd be in pretty good shape. But it's not what it makes no sense. I mean, that was flying around on the old Reddit pages like last week. It's not going to happen. Mailbag question. Is there a world where the Steelers actually start Fields over Wilson? If Russell is healthy, because Mike's pretty old school, Mike's a little bit of a throwback. I think no matter what, he would try at least for a couple games, Russell Wilson. Veteran player, proven more. If you have to just dink and dunk, he can do that. The wild card that is Fields, I think if Russell is healthy, he starts week 1. Now, I don't know how long that lasts, but I do think that Tomlin is giving him week 1. And probably, give or take the first month, no matter what. Now, if they start 0-3, 0-4, quick hook. If they're 2-2, but it looks pretty terrible, quick hook. Again, if Fields is playing this preseason game, what does he look like? I keep pushing Fields, but he can't be throwing balls into the dirt. He can't be taking sacks left and right. He has to function. He has to play well. He has to kind of work in this offense. I'm not trying to speak out of both sides of my mouth, but it's on him to do some stuff too. But I think no matter what, if he's healthy, Russell gets the start. And I'm not saying that's the right move. Well, it'll play itself out, but I think Tomlin's going to do that. Old school guy, veteran player, proven a lot, star. Just finished episode 1 of Hard Knocks. And from what I've seen of Caleb so far, I'm worried. He seems meek and shy, unconfident, and I don't see him being a vocal leader. Just doesn't seem like the guy to lead a team. Purdy has a similar vibe. Quiet, soft-spoken, but he makes plays. And we've yet to see what Caleb looks like. I think it is very, very difficult for any young human being to walk right in to any situation, an office, a sales team, a football team, and be the alpha and point and tell everyone what to do. I have a hard time judging him for not screaming at guys. You don't get to act like Tom Brady or Peyton Manning day 1 of training camp your rookie year. Just like the CEO of a company probably wasn't acting like that if he'd been there for 20 years his first year. There's a hierarchy of life. And there was a clip in the Hard Knocks where I don't know if it was DeAndre Swift. It was might have been the backup running back who's like, "Hey, get on these guys." It's not easy being one of the youngest guys and having all these people looking at you who in that scenario are filthy rich. A lot of them have had success, gone to Pro Bowls, and then you have to tell them what to do. Now, as time happens, you become more comfortable. It's easy. The Peyton Manning we saw year 5 was that the Peyton Manning day 2 of training camp his rookie year. I'm not saying Caleb's going to be Peyton Manning. I can't judge his personality off the first couple practices of training camp. That's just not fair. I mean, and it's just stupid. Just put yourself in that scenario. Whatever you do for a job, think about your first day at the job. Actually, regardless how old you are. I'm not even talking about right out of college. I'm talking, you could be 40 and you just started a job last year. The first couple months of the job, are you bossing everyone around? Probably you're kind of easing your way into stuff. And this is the time to ease your way into stuff. I actually think his personality, he felt a little more normal than I felt when I saw him at USC. Get him around the guys. He's got, DJ Moore, Keenan, cool cats, Jalen Moore. Eberflus, I thought, was a big winner. I know a lot of people have DM'd me about Dayball's performance in the Hard Knocks. I thought it was very football guy-like. A lot of swear words, a lot of feet up on the desk, a lot of just being in sweats all the time. And then you get Eberflus, who's just like, this guy's pretty impressive. I'm not saying I'm coming around on him, that he's going to be some star head coach. Pretty likable. I could see why people like Matt Eberflus. Nick Saban likes him. Players seem to like him. I thought it was a really, really good showing for Eberflus in the first episode. I really did. And I'm not acting like they should give him an extension yet, but I understand. I like this guy. And sometimes you watch a show, that's part of entertainment. You want, and that's what the people that produce the show want to get. Whatever show. They want you to like some people and hate other people. It's a natural reaction for us. Hell, there are probably people listening to this podcast. I can't stand this fucking guy. I don't mind as long as you're listening. It's no different that, you might watch and you're like, God, I hate this Caleb Williams guy. He's pretty polarizing. I don't find him as polarizing at this point, like now that he's with the Bears. I just want to see how good he is. I want to see what he looks like as a player. And you guys know where I stand. Like, I think my expectations for him aren't as crazy high as some of these other people. Now, I had Fitzmaurice, the Fantasy Pros guy, who has Jaden Daniels above him. I would not do that. I don't even think the gap between those two players. I know Jaden had a great year. He's throwing to Malik Neighbors, who all reports come out of training camp. This guy looks like fucking Jerry Rice meets Terrell Owens. I mean, he's incredible. Brian Thomas Jr., who was awesome. They have the star left tackle. That team was stacked. Not acting like he's not going to be any good in the NFL, but I think sometimes that happens. The gap between Caleb Williams and Jaden Daniels, their entire lives up until 9 games last year, has been really wide. And the NFL is really, really hard. So I'm not a believer in Cliff Kingsbury's offense. And I know Shane Waldron and that style of offense, the play action, the boots, the waggles with a guy like Caleb. Some of those, they did a little montage of like 5 or 6 of Caleb's throws on the run. And some of these DBs are just on the sideline going, what the hell was that? Because his arm strength, his ability to scramble, and that's a lot of modern day NFL. And he can be really accurate on the move. And then you got Keenan Allen, DJ Moore, guys that get open with ease. And then you got Rome Odunze, who you can kind of throw it anywhere. He can make just acrobatic catches. I guess Keenan can too. That if Caleb is good this year, they could be a really, really explosive passing game. I think the question would be the offensive line, which I got news for you. Most offensive lines aren't great. Most teams, if you got their GM on the horn right now and go, how many offensive linemen on your team do you feel good about? I would say the over-under would be 2.5. I bet most teams, like we really like our left tackle and our right guard. Center, solid. Left guard, we'd like to replace. Right tackle, pretty iffy. Most teams don't go like, yeah, I got 4 Hall of Famers and a really solid starter. It's not the way it works. So if your thing is don't love our offensive line, as long as they're functional in your offense and you have a couple like long-term starters, like, yeah, it's on your offensive line coach to improve the random guys. But most teams do not have 4 Pro Bowlers. It's why whenever people complain about their second corner, it's like, yeah, welcome to the NFL. Most times your second corner isn't that great. Like most guys aren't 6'5", long hair, jacked abs, super rich. I mean, really smart, nice guy, great businessman, and he can sing. Like you usually don't get it all. That's not the way it happens. And I think a lot of people complain with like every team has a weakness. And unless you're a great team, you're going to have several weaknesses. And a weakness is usually a group, right? It's like, yeah, we like one of our 3 linebackers. I've worked in these spots. You're constantly looking like, yeah, I think these 3 guys are better than the guy we got. Now, maybe the coach likes him, the position coach likes him, and he knows the playbook. So it's not like you cut him and sign that guy. But that's like, you're not thrilled about most players. Let me rephrase that. I bet the Bears are bullish on a lot of guys on their team, but they need to show it when the pads come on. Like the overwhelming majority of the NFL. Most guys in the NFL are not DJ Moore and Keenan Allen. Question marks all over the place. You got to do it all the time. And even the good players, like Keenan's been doing it. Like, I know every year if he's healthy, he's going to be in the mix for the Pro Bowl and more than likely go. But Jalen Johnson's a good example. Like, yeah, he's unreal year. Or are you going to do it the next 3? Are you going to go to like 4 straight Pro Bowls? Or is it going to be up and down career? What are we doing? You got paid. Let's see what you got. I don't know. I mean, I hope I root for good players, but that's what great players do. Like every year, TJ Watt, Myles Garrett, Travis Kelce, these guys are healthy. They're kicking ass and taking names. And then there are a lot of players you go, oh, this guy made a Pro Bowl this year. Then he didn't make a Pro Bowl for a couple years. Then he made a Pro Bowl. What makes the NFL so fascinating? Greatest reality television show on television. Have a great day. Adios.